Hi, my name is William Gibbons Bill. About 7 years ago, I began exhibiting symptoms of PSP. The earliest encounter with the illness, the first manifestations were visual disturbances. I was in a bookstore, leafing through a book, and when I put the book back in the shelf and looked up, I became disoriented. I felt like I was going to fall and needed to sit down. My wife helped me to a chair. A couple of weeks later, I was driving at night and I looked down at the dashboard to check my speed or something, and when I looked up, there was a traffic light some 150 yards in the distance, and I couldn't lock in on it. I was disoriented and had to pull over to the side of the road, and again felt not like I was going to pass out, but I couldn't. I was disoriented. About 4 months later, my wife and I were in Italy, and my wife took a picture of me. I'm standing above the cityscape of Florence behind me, and I didn't notice it until later. Looking at my body and my face, I could see the beginnings of some of the things I encounter now. A couple of months after that, I've been very active physically. I was a runner. I ran some 30 plus miles a week for 20 years until this happened. But I noticed that it began to be difficult running. And so gradually I limited my running to indoors on a treadmill. And I lessened the settings for speed and incline because it was becoming more difficult. 6 months later, about Christmas time, 2011, I ran. My running became, I decided that I'd been a wimp, and I set the settings on the treadmill back to where they'd been the previous summer. And in doing so, I injured my right leg badly, and it wouldn't heal very well. And over time, of course, I wasn't able to run, and even walking became difficult. There were other problems. I had to retire 5 years ago, a lot earlier than I planned to. My career was as a corporate finance executive, and I had to give that up. But I wanted to share some things that I have found to be most beneficial. Part of it is I have tried to stay as active physically and mentally as I can. I wrote my life story, some 440 pages, and had it professionally bound and distributed to my family. And that was 4 years ago, and I was able to write a children's book it's a storybook about my grandchildren and for them, and it's a fictional story. I've called it The Children of Castle Evermore, and it's set in a fictional kingdom in Europe in the 18th century. And as I was finishing the text, I thought of, well, I was writing an email to a friend who was an illustrator of children's books to see if she might provide 5 or 6 illustrations for the book. And the audacious thought occurred to me, why don't I illustrate it? Well, to that point, I had never picked up an artist's brush. But I learned how to do watercolor since it's my favorite medium. And I ended up providing some 20 illustrations for that book. And since then, I've done a portrait of each of my 8 grandchildren, and that's been a wonderful thing. I wrote a 2-volume treatise on the lives and works of James Joyce, the Irish author, and of a favorite poet of mine, an Englishman, Gerard Manley Hopkins, who ultimately ended in Dublin, same place where Joyce lived and wrote for a long time. And he died there at the age of 45, almost 45. 2 volumes, each about 430 pages. And I feel very fortunate being able to do that. I'm in the process now. I can't paint. I no longer can paint, and I can no longer write anything lengthy. But I am in the process of doing a video on the Hopkins poem, The Wreck of the Deutschland, his longest and one of his earlier poems that I especially like. And perhaps I'll share that with this audience once it's done. But I wanted to tell you that my life has been rich and blessed in these years since the onset of the illness, and in some ways are the most beatified and blessed of my life. Part of it is I have a rich network of friends, supporters. Part of it comes from my membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, more commonly known as the Mormon Church. I enjoy going to my weekly services there. It's a 3-hour block of meetings that I'm able to go to in a wheelchair. And in the last week, I've had visits from 3 of the members of that congregation who come. And the young men ages 12 to 16, came and shoveled my walks. There was a snowstorm on Saturday, got 8 or so inches of snow, and they came and shoveled my walks. But 3 other adult members of our congregation came to visit me. And I had visits from a niece and my brother and 3 friends, 3 longtime friends, each different times in this last week. It actually was a little bit more physically challenging than I would have hoped, but each one came by and loaded my wheelchair in their car or truck and took me to lunch. These things have enhanced my quality of life for the last years. And so I wanted to share a message of optimism and hope to those, especially of you who may have been more recently diagnosed with PSP. I encourage you to be active and to be positive in your outlook. It's helped me greatly. I have a wonderful wife who helps me get through each day. I think a religious faith is very important. I think to remain physically and mentally active is very important. Take care of yourselves. Don't fall. I took a fall Saturday, and it's difficult, but those are happening more frequently. But life is good, and I treasure it. And in the spirit of fellowship with each of you, I wanted to reach out and with a message of hope. Good luck to you.